The Heisei trilogy rounds itself out with Revenge of Iris, but does it live up to the previous entries in the series? Yep, I mean, there shouldn't be any shock there, but this did do a very good job of finishing this trilogy satisfactorily. I mean, I have my reservations, which I will go into, but on the whole, this is very good. I've spent so much of the Kaiju Shelf complaining about the lack of city destruction sequences in my big kaiju movies. Revenge of Iris slaps me around the face and makes me feel bad for asking. So much of the first half of this film is showing the tragedy in what we as filmgoers rejoice in. We see these fights from a ground level view, and we see people get trampled underfoot. It's honestly a hard watch in places. When the newscaster revealed that the death count of this attack on the city was in the thousands, I let out an audible, "Shit, that's the second time this series has made me say things audibly." Good job! All of this is obviously to get us to understand and empathise with the core character of this film, a girl who hates Gamera because her family were killed during a battle in the first film between Gamera and Gauss. The revenge of the title is hers, whilst Iris may be genetically and spiritually predisposed to hating Gamera. She is the one who has lost and seen that loss happen and hasn't received any help for this loss. Her foster family refuses to accept her family name, and her peers reject her as the weird kid. Her grief has grown into blind hatred, and it is difficult, hard, and painful. It only results in more damage, including the deaths of everyone around her. It's powerful and probably the most emotionally charged that any film has got on the shelf at this point in time. I really like what they do with light in this film, whether that be from reflections or from torches, or the glow from iris or fire. It just looks beautiful. Indeed, the choices in general with the cinematography are really smart and gorgeous. Putting the main flashback in black and white is an obvious choice, but one that delivers great results, especially when later we get the same flashback from a more objective point of view that is in full colour, where we see that Gamera wasn't destroying her family out of any malice, but that they were just innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire. It's a series of nice choices that just work. However, now I must unfortunately talk about my reservations with this film because I do have them. The fight scenes in this film don't work for me as well as the previous two iterations, and that is a massive shame for me. For me, once we get to Iris's main form, the frame just becomes a bit too cluttered and it becomes a bit too difficult to work out quite what's happening at any given moment in time. Pulling the camera back slightly or just keeping it stiller will probably help a lot in this regard, I think. However, I do also know why it's like this. Iris is far too over-designed. There's a lot happening and half of its final form is CGI. 1999 CGI on a low budget, and they are trying to make that work as best as possible here. These are problems that the previous two films just didn't happen. The designs of the antagonists were streamlined, the camera was able to be placed further back, and the CGI was lessened. Indeed, the final fight is contained mostly to a single building, and as such, there just isn't room for the camera to move back and fit everything in the frame. It's a massive shame, especially when your creature design is so complex, you do need to fit everything in to understand quite what's going on. I will say that the early Gamera sequences are stunning. There are some great choices in cinematography that really highlight the tragedy and the scale of these monsters from a ground level. In general, those bits are just brilliantly handled. Overall though, Gamera 3 is a really emotionally charged bit of filmmaking and a satisfying conclusion to a legitimately great series of films. Some choices in creature design and fight cinematography aside, this is well worth the watch. I'm back to Kong next with Peter Jackson's 2005 remake of the classic movie. That's right, we're in the 21st century, folks. Strap in, this is my territory.